Hi, I hope you are doing well. Happy holidays. My name is Catherine, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Zen Tree Time Joy Kit Sewing Edition. So grab your supplies, put on your favorite holiday tunes, and let's get started. Okay, so begin by unpacking your Joy Kit. You will find inside the following supplies: your collectible Zen Tree Time postcard, 6 fabric squares for the body of your tree, 1 for the trunk of your tree, a front piece of your quilt, back piece of your quilt, some inner batting, as well as 7 pieces of cardstock pre-cut for the different sizes. You'll have your instruction booklet, as well as towards the back of that is a layout of what this pattern looks like to make it really easy for you to match up. For this kit, other supplies you will also need include scissors, a decent quality glue stick, sewing needles, thread. I'm using a lighter thread to match my front piece of my quilt body, as well as some pins. So once you have all your supplies gathered, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to gently attach our fabric squares to our cardstock pieces. In order to make our paper pieces easier to remove from our fabric at the end, we are going to punch 1 hole in the center of each of them. If you have a hole punch at home, you can use that. Otherwise, very carefully use your scissors just to make a little hole like so. Doing that in all your cardstock pieces. Once you're done that, you can go ahead and we are going to attach or baste our fabric squares to our cardstock pieces. So I'm going to show you both here, the glue method as well as the method using thread. Okay. Let's begin by doing our tree stump. So you're going to need to first select the right piece of cardstock. In your pre-cut cardstock, you'll see that there's 2 skinny rectangles that match and 1 is shorter. The shorter one is going to be your tree trunk. So select your tree trunk piece. It's 1 inch by 1.75 or 1 3/4 inches. Place the wrong side of your fabric facing up. So I have my colored side, my wrong side, and from here I'm going to attach that piece of cardstock down. The first method I'm going to show you how to use is using your glue stick. I prefer doing it with the glue stick because I find it a lot easier and quicker. But if you'd like a little bit of a neater project, you're welcome to do with the thread if you prefer. So place a small amount of glue on your cardstock. Then all we're going to do is we're going to work around the edges, folding our fabric over. So you can place some nice glue just gently on the edge there, maybe a bit on the paper, it's up to you. Nice crisp fold over like so. And then working your way around the rest of the fabric till you've finished this complete piece. And so that gives us our first piece. Now moving on to our tree body, I'll show you how to do the same thing we just did with the glue, but with needle and thread. Place one of your tree body squares wrong side up and thread your needle. If you have trouble threading your needle, make sure you've recently trimmed your thread, making it easy to get it through the eye. Put one of your pieces of cardstock in the center. Pin through the center of your cardstock to the fabric beneath, coming through on the other side. Do your best to center your cardstock on your square of fabric. If you would like here, you can trim off some of the fabric around, but make sure to leave at least 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or trim. Fold over your fabric square edge, pressing it down to get a nice straight line. Repeat the same step on an adjoining side. Using your fingers, hold the corner you just made in place. Then, with your threaded needle, go from one side of the corner to the other, attaching it down. When you come back around, do your best to go through the same holes you just made. Pull your thread tight, but not so tight that it goes through all the way. Continue this process around the rest of your shape. Repeat this process either using the sewing or the glue method around the rest of your cardstock pieces. Once we have all our fabric attached to our cardstock, either through gluing or sewing, we are going to lay it out on our pattern. So you can grab that from the back of your instruction booklet, and all you're gonna do is just match up which square goes where on your pattern, leaving the tree trunk to last. Then with your tree trunk, so there's a few lengths you can place it at, wherever you prefer. You can either use the recommended length, sliding it underneath that little square, or you can do it longer or shorter. It's up to you. Then we're gonna begin to attach our pieces to each other. So if you want, you can leave your pieces down here to work off as you go. The first two we're gonna select are these two. Line up your edges as well as your corners. Then taking your thread and needle, run your needle through the corner of your top piece, making sure that you don't go through the paper. And then also through that bottom piece corner, again, making sure not to go through the paper. Repeat that step again, making an attempt to go through the same hole you just did as close as possible. Before you go all the way through this second time, we're gonna do a little knot. So grab your long tail, wrap it around your thread a few times, and then pull that needle the rest of the way through. This will help keep your thread from moving on you as you make your way through the rest of this shape. Then all we're gonna do is work our way along this edge we lined up, doing little stitches as we go. Okay, so when we get to the end here, we're going to do our stitch through twice in the same place. So you can come to that corner, sort of like how we started actually. Go through once. Again, making sure you don't get the paper here. And then one more time through that same place as best as you can. Again, before you push through all the way, take that top thread, wrap it a few times around that needle. That's gonna knot it in place, and then pull it the rest of the way through. Let's take a look how it is on the other side. So you can see we have a really nice seam there. Our thread isn't too visible. So we're gonna do the same now with another piece. So if we go back to our pattern, we can place this down here. If you can arrange your pieces so that your thread is going to be bordering the other ones, then we won't have to cut it and start again. So there's those pieces like that. Let's do now this one here. So we're gonna work up this other edge, fold it over just like that. Okay, so we are at the end of this piece again. Same thing to finish off here. We go through once, a second time trying to get through that same hole, not going all the way through, and then that top thread, you wrap it and pull it through to complete that knot. So let's check in with our pattern. So the next piece we're gonna attach is this little rectangle here to this piece here. So we're gonna take that over, and then we're gonna work from this edge in, and then what's gonna happen is we're going to fold this piece. So this piece folds, and then we work from this edge out to there. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. You can see your tree is starting to take shape, and we're getting that mosaic quality that often goes with the technique of English paper piecing, which is what this cardstock to fabric is based on. So let's go back down to looking at our pattern for these next two pieces we're gonna attach. In terms of placement of these two bottom pieces in relation to your tree, you can move them up if you like the way that looks, or down. I'm gonna keep mine in this placement here. So fold it again. Make sure you have a nice line. And then you're just gonna take that needle through just like we've been doing, except this time, instead of going corner to corner, it comes out corner and just goes through an edge. So we have our tree body complete. Next thing we're gonna do is attach it to our main quilt body. You have two pieces of fabric in your quilt. One is smaller than the other. So make sure you identify which is smaller, because that's going to be our quilt front, because we're gonna end up folding over the edges. So grab your quilt front. You're going to fold your quilt front in half, pressing down along the seam, and then do the same the other direction. Again, pressing down along the seam. That's gonna give you the center point of your piece of fabric, which is gonna make it really easy to place your tree and your trunk well. Okay, I'll bring you in closer so you can see what I'm gonna do next. If you haven't already, go ahead and remove the pins from the back of your tree body here. I'm gonna take this center point and I'm going to match it up to this center point on the front of my quilt as best as I can, using the guides of the folded lines I made to center my tree body. Then, taking your tree trunk, you have two ways you can do it. You can either slip it under that bottom square, eyeballing what you think looks best, or if you'd like, you can line it up on your pattern here, put a little mark there, and then make sure that mark matches the edge of your tree body for placement. Just keep in mind that we will be folding over this edge to complete our quilt, so we'll need to leave a little bit of space around this border. Once you're happy with the placement of everything, press down on your tree trunk, remove your tree body, and either glue or pin your tree trunk to your front quilting fabric. We're going to sew around the tree trunk next, so we'll want to make sure it stays in place. Before you begin to sew around your tree trunk, we're going to put a knot in the end of the thread. So if you want, you can just tie that like regular, or bring the very end of your thread up across your sewing needle, do a few loops with the rest of the tail, and pull that down, pinching it between your thumbs to make a nice quilter's knot at the end of your thread. Come through the back of your quilt, trying to poke through the top corner of your tree trunk. Remember, we don't want to go through the paper here. Repeat that step again, this time poking through the fabric and then coming back up in a similar spot. Repeat this step around the rest of your tree trunk, catching the back fabric and working your needle through the front. Continue on until you end up back where you started. So I'm at the end of my trunk here. I started here, I've worked all the way around. We're just gonna finish it similar to how we did when we were attaching the pieces together. So you go through again in that similar spot. And then before you come all the way through, you're gonna wrap around and pull for that knot. For the trunk here, I did the knot on the front just so it was easier for all of you to see. But when we do our tree body, we'll wanna make sure we do that knot on the back so that it's not going to be visible in our final quilt design. So you can go ahead and flip your fabric over. Now we're gonna take out our paper piece that goes in our tree trunk. You'll wanna make sure when you're doing this that you do not cut through all the way to the front. So we're just getting that back piece there. So once you've removed the paper from your trunk shape, we can go ahead and attach our tree body. So I'm just gonna flip it back over and we're gonna follow our similar process. So you're gonna line everything up, make sure you like the position, and then all you're going to do is you're going to glue down your shape. So not pin this time would be my recommendation. You're gonna glue down, putting glue along all these edges like so. Place your shape, and then again, we're going to attach it. I'm gonna start right here at my top point because then I can really match that with my fold line that I have for my center. And I'm gonna work my way around this way. So remember, we go right to left, going around the whole edge. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to finishing up. With any loose threads around the edge of your fabric, you can give those a little trim just so you make sure you aren't pulling them. And then we're gonna flip our shape over so we have the back side up, and we're just going to remove the rest of our paper pieces. So remember, we don't cut all the way through, just in this back part here that is nice and loose. So you can use your scissors and then cut around the interior of your shape, being careful not to go all the way through. So there we go. So I've removed that back piece of fabric. I can now access these paper squares under here. And you can use your scissors, crochet hook, whatever you have handy to carefully pop them out. Okay, so you can flip it over. You can see that is where we're at, which looks really good. Our edges are pretty nice and neat, and we've removed the paper pieces. Now we have to attach the batting as well as the back side. Then what we're gonna do is, in order to make a nice border, we are going to use our glue and or our pins. Put a little bit of glue along this seam, just like you did when we were putting the fabric on the cardboard cutouts or the cardstock cutouts. You're gonna fold that over till it just hits the edge right there of the inside of your quilt. Then you do a bit of glue again. And you're gonna fold that edge you just made over the rest of the way. Okay, so we're gonna sew around the edge. So you can take out the pin where you are starting. Hopefully your glue has dried enough to hold things in place. And then all we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the back here, trying to catch our batting, and then up through the seam of the fold. That way we'll be able to hide our tail inside as we go here. So go back through the batting as much as you can, and then pop back up and come through that fold. Once you've finished sewing around the edge, you can trim any loose threads if you see any. It looks like I'm good. And that completes your Zen Tree Time Joy Kit Sewing Edition. So thank you for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I am sure the craft that you created looks beautiful, and I hope you can enjoy it maybe as a fabric coaster or a mug rug or whatever you're gonna use it for as you get into the holiday spirit. Happy holidays, everyone. Bye.